Skyrim is a land drenched in stories. They are spoken by bards in taverns, whispered in the halls of jarls, or told through grand quests involving dragons and ancient magic. But some of the most powerful stories in Skyrim are not told directly. Instead, they are written in the landscape, in forgotten ruins, abandoned shacks, and lonely campsites. These silent tales have no dialogue, no quest markers, and no rewards. They are there for the player to discover, interpret, and carry with them. Few places embody this better than the Dead Lovers' Camp, an unmarked location hidden in the wilderness. On the surface, it is nothing more than a small campfire, 2 bodies and a scattering of belongings. Yet, the moment you see it, the weight of tragedy presses in. You don't need a quest log to tell you what happened. The scene itself speaks volumes. 2 lovers cut off from the world, dead together in the wild. This camp is more than a curiosity. It is a place of heartbreak, mystery, and loneliness. A story left untold by NPCs or books, but carved deeply into the imagination of the player. In many ways, it may be the most tragic place in all of Skyrim. The Dead Lovers' Camp is easy to miss. Unlike forts, towns, or caves, it is not marked on the player's map. It exists quietly, tucked away like a secret. The camp consists of little more than a bedroll, a campfire, and the lifeless bodies of 2 lovers lying side by side. There are no enemies guarding the area, no quest sends you here, no bandits ambush you when you arrive. It is utterly still. That silence in itself is chilling. Skyrim is usually bustling with some kind of activity: wolves, bandits, travellers, or wildlife. To stumble upon a place where nothing moves except the wind is quite jarring. And then there are the bodies. They are not arranged like casualties of a battle or random corpses left behind after a skirmish. They are posed in intimacy, somewhat close together, suggesting love, comfort, and an attempt to stay connected even at the moment of death. Their story is ambiguous, but the clues are enough for the player to piece together possibilities. One of the reasons the Dead Lovers' Camp hits so hard is that it reminds us of Skyrim's brutality. Skyrim is a dangerous, unforgiving land where survival is always in question. Bandits roam the roads, frostbite spiders stalk caves, and dragons circle overhead. In such a world, love becomes both fragile and precious. For these 2 unnamed lovers, their choice to isolate themselves in the wilderness speaks volumes. Did they run away together, perhaps from families or factions that disapproved? Were they outcast from a nearby town, forced to make their home in the wild? Or were they travellers, caught by fate at the wrong place and at the wrong time? Their love, whatever the circumstances, was clearly strong enough to bring them here, and yet it wasn't enough to save them. That harsh reality gives the camp its profound tragedy. In Skyrim, love itself can fall victim to the dangers of the world. One of the most powerful aspects of the Dead Lovers' Camp is its lack of answers. Bethesda deliberately leaves it unexplained, allowing players to interpret the scene themselves. Unlike quests where outcomes are clear and motivations are spelled out, here everything is a suggestion. The bodies offer one journal telling us their names and why they fled, but no other letters or why and how they died. Their identities are basically erased, their backstory swallowed by the silence of the wilderness. All that remains is the tableau of their final moments. This absence is haunting. In games, we are accustomed to closure. Villains are defeated, mysteries solved, quests resolved. The Dead Lovers' Camp denies this satisfaction. Instead, it forces the player to sit with ambiguity, to fill the void with imagination, speculation, and empathy. And that lack of narrative structure is what makes the place so emotionally resonant. It is a reminder that not every story ends with explanation. Some tragedies remain silent forever. The Dead Lovers' Camp is a masterclass in environmental storytelling. Skyrim often uses environmental cues to tell stories outside of dialogue. An abandoned house with blood on the floor, a skeleton clutching a coin purse, or a burned carriage with charred remains inside. These little details invite the player to stop and think. The Dead Lovers' Camp is one of the most effective examples. This simple placement of 2 bodies by a campfire tells you everything and nothing at the same time. They weren't killed by bandits, or at least not here. Their bodies don't lie in combat poses. Instead, they lie apart, suggesting that whatever killed them, they faced it side by side, to a degree. The choice not to explain their deaths is deliberate. It leaves the interpretation up to the player, and in doing so, it becomes more personal. Each player brings their own emotions, their own experiences, and their own assumptions to the scene. That is the strength of environmental storytelling. It doesn't dictate, it just invites. In Skyrim, death is common, but it often comes with meaning. Soldiers die in the civil war for their side. Adventurers perish in the pursuit of treasure. NPCs are killed by dragons or in quests with narrative weight attached. The lovers in this camp, however, died without glory. They are not remembered by any quest, nor spoken of by any NPC. They left no legacy, no name, no mark on the world. Their love and their deaths are utterly unacknowledged in the grand sweep of Skyrim's history. This lack of recognition is what makes their fate tragic. Death without remembrance, love without witness, is a quiet kind of heartbreak that lingers with the player long after they move on. It reminds us that not all tragedies are epic. Some are small, private, and easily forgotten, unless someone happens to stumble upon them. This camp is not unique in Skyrim in being an unmarked side of tragedy, but it stands out for its emotional weight. For example, there are burnt-out caravans scattered across the map, where skeletons and charred belongings tell the story of bandit raids. There are lonely shacks with single skeletons clutching journals, suggesting lives ended in solitude. And there is the infamous dead adventurer outside Bleak Falls Barrow, lying face down in the snow, sword still in hand. But the lovers are different. Their story isn't about greed, violence, or misfortune in battle. It's about intimacy. About two people who clearly meant everything to each other, even as death closed in. That intimacy paired with the ambiguity makes their story universal. They could be anyone, and in that, they became everyone. Perhaps the most gripping part of the Dead Lovers camp is that the player is the only one who will ever see it. The Dragonborn is the sole witness to this small tragedy. There is no quest to report, no family to inform, no way to mark their passing. The only act the player can perform is to pause, observe, and remember. This transforms the player from adventurer to mourner. For a brief moment, the Dragonborn is not slayer of dragons or the hero of quests, but a lone traveller who has stumbled across the forgotten story of two people who loved and lost. That act of witnessing matters. Without the player, their story would vanish completely. And in this way, the camp becomes a meditation on memory, that even in tragedy, what lingers is the act of someone stopping to care. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of the Dead Lovers camp is not the death itself, but the silence that follows it. Skyrim is a land filled with stories, bards sing of people's returns, travellers gossip about dragons, even the smallest village seems to pass along rumours. Yet here in this lonely camp there are no songs, no memories, and no acknowledgement that these lovers even existed. The Dead Lovers camp may be unmarked, unexplained, and easy to miss, but that is precisely what makes it so powerful. It tells a story without words, a tragedy without recognition, and a love that ended in silence. In a game filled with epic quests and world-shaking battles, this small camp reminds us of the human stories that unfold quietly in the margins. It is a reminder that tragedy doesn't always announce itself with dragons or war, but simply the Skyrim rats. Sometimes it sits by a campfire, in two bodies lying close together waiting for someone to notice. And in noticing, we become the keepers of their story. So this perhaps is why the Dead Lovers camp deserves the title as the most tragic place in all of Skyrim.